Hey guys, this is Blake Helfman. I'm here with Josh Merwin, River Oaks Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram. We are super excited about the partnership that Josh and I have put together. Houston International Sports Film Festival, River Oaks Chrysler Jeep Dodge is a premier sponsor. We're going to be offering discounts on cars. We're going to be giving away sports memorabilia, and we are so excited to partner with them. Tell us a little bit about the Sports Film Festival, Josh.
Yeah, so it's a one-of-a-kind sports film festival in Houston, June 3rd through 6th of 2021. We're not only going to have sports films that relate to life, we're going to have sports activities for kids to get them outside again. Also, I'm really excited to be partnering with them because my first car that I bought was a Jeep Wrangler right at this dealership, 1997 Jeep Wrangler. They've obviously gotten a little bit bigger since then. This holiday season, come get a Jeep Wrangler for yourself.
Guys, we got the website below. Swipe up, swipe up, swipe up. Register right now for all the updates. It'll be coming up before you know it. Swipe up right now, and that website, Josh, is?
HISFF.org for Houston International Sports Film Festival.org.
Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Josh Merwin, the founder of the Houston International Sports Film Festival. I thought we'd change things up a little bit, and today we're going to have Darrias Thomas interviewing Candace Cooper. They've been friends for a long time, and Darrias has extensive experience in the college sports world. Candace was the first female black swimmer at University of North Carolina. So without any further ado, I'll let them go for it.
Welcome to the show.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
All right, Candace, let's get to it. You are a pioneer in your own right. You were the first African-American female swimmer or woman swimmer at UNC. Talk about what that means every time you hear that.
I think it means it hits different every time. I think it's very important. It's a great accolade, right? It's something that I had to learn myself. It's not something that I just knew going into Carolina, all this pressure, you were the first to do something. It actually came about from being a senior. I was doing my senior thesis in African-American studies, trying to figure out kind of what is the athlete landscape, especially at Carolina. I just happened to ask the old coach, hey, has there ever been a Black woman? Because hey, I would love to interview her. Oh, no, there's not. You're the first one. And so that was just a unique space and something that I tell my close friends, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's a huge deal. And I'm not even thinking it's a big deal because of all the things that I'm going through there. And to think about it now, looking back, even still, every time someone says it, I'm like, yeah, I really just had a great experience being a regular college kid. It wasn't this 1956, super movement and a lot of aggressive behavior that a lot of my ancestors experienced. So in that regard, it's a different dynamic, but they were still looking back, definitely microaggressive behaviors that I experienced just from one, being a swimmer, but two, just where the university still has to grow, right? So it's a unique conversation that I always get pulled into that I don't mind, right? But at the end of the day, it's not something that I'm like, oh yeah, let me wear that badge every time and make sure you know. It's just something that if it comes up in conversation, great. If it doesn't, I'm cool too.
Right. So going back to when you freshman year or, whenever you decided to commit to Carolina, did you grow up a Carolina fan, or was this opportunity just one that presented itself later on in life?
Great question. So I took 4 trips. I went to Tennessee, Virginia Tech, LSU, and Carolina, and I didn't take my 5th trip because I was like, I feel like I'm gonna pick in 4. I'm not really a take a free trip for nothing kind of person, even though I should, just because for kicks and giggles. Tennessee and Virginia Tech, the girls weren't my cup of tea. And then LSU, I loved the school, but they didn't hang around people outside of swimmers. And growing up being a Black girl, I hung around people that were not just swimmers. So I was not familiar with that space of swim team all the time. That's our family, whatever. So I went to Carolina and I'm like, oh, we're hanging out with the basketball team. We're hanging out with the football team. Sign me up. I got in the car and I was like, Mom, I might commit on Tuesday. I just was like, I feel at home. I feel like I can do that swimming thing and I can really be about that Monday through Saturday. And then I can just be Candace and figure out my space at that university and find my group and my niche. So I was really blessed with that opportunity because Carolina gave me everything. I had friends outside of swimming. I had friends in swimming, right? I had relationships outside of swimming, thank the Lord. So it was a great time. I really can't complain. Of course, there were things that are not perfect, but overall, I think Carolina gave me everything that I think a college student really needs. a big thing when you come in. You're like, okay, I at least have people that I can relate to already off gate. I think also from a standpoint of you have set hours to do a lot of different things. So that time management is kind of built in for you. So you don't have to figure out necessarily like students who are just, they have so much free time. So you don't have that luxury, right? So you have to have the freshman study hours. You have to do your work to be eligible. So you're forced to be on your academic grind, which can be good and bad, right? I think the cons of it for me, when I was in school, we didn't get free snacks. We didn't get free, stipend for food. And listen, that's one of my biggest gripes because they got that literally the year after I graduated when that boy got there and said that they were hungry. UConn, what was it, the Final Four? And so I definitely think the cons of it is it's very stressful for no reason at times. Like it's an added on pressure to perform at such a high level athletically and then be called upon to do the same thing academically. Not every professor cares about your athletic abilities, unfortunately. Not every friend group is going to be understanding of the fact that you can't go out on a Tuesday night when you have Wednesday morning practice at 5 a.m. So it can be isolating, right? Especially if you're not a person who likes to be around your team all the time. And I do think, especially for the revenue sports, it's hard when you start to see all the money being made around you and you're literally receiving, I don't want to say none of it because at the end of the day, I know people be like, oh, it's just for gear, but I don't have to worry about my sneakers, my shirts, my sweatshirts, all that kind of stuff. Don't have to worry about my meal plan, things like that. I don't have to worry about my tuition. All those kind of things definitely play a part in, like, a lot of guys got free education, which for good or bad, a lot of people have used those degrees for good, right? So I do think that the NCAA should create a system. I don't know how it works. I feel like it's all a domino effect, but I do hope that they get to a place where the guys can at least build their brands and they can realize what they bring to the table, if not just from an emotional standpoint, right, but also from a financial standpoint.
Let's dig into that a little bit because I have many conversations with people go back and forth.
Yeah.
Not to put myself into the conversation because I would love for it to be about the guest and not about me. But someone who's been around college athletics for 13 plus years, that's the gripe that, they make this money off of us and we don't get any of this. But you make a good point. It's like, it's not just that it's a free education. You also get bumped to the front of the line a little bit in a financial sense. If you're a scholarship athlete, right? If you can walk away with no debt, you've already pushed yourself ahead. But do you think that going through the college experience as an athlete that you recognize that as you're going through it, or are you more focused on this is a grind and I have to do this and I have to do this and I can't do this and all that? Like, does college prepare you?
I think that from an athlete standpoint, and I was talking to my friend about this the other day, he has his own resume building company. And we were both talking about how athletes are so not prepared for the career phase, because that's just something that I think athletic programs have had to really hone in on, student athlete development. A lot of them, that wasn't for us. I went to my career development office maybe 3 times. I had no clue of what. I wish I had done a better job of okay, I like to talk. Communications, I should have been in communication 101. I should have been journalism major. Had I known there were these spaces for me to not only do something I enjoyed working in sports, but also get some money behind it, maybe I wouldn't have taken the 8-year plus route to finally kind of figure it out. I think it doesn't hit you till you're in your 30s, and you do see, some of your friends who are so in debt and they're taking jobs they hate because they're trying to climb out of this extremely insurmountable debt at times. And you sit back, especially for some of my guy friends, you don't know what that feels like, right? You don't know what that paralyzing feeling of having to be in these certain roles because you have so much debt. So I think you don't appreciate it till you're done. I do think, though, that they should get to a place where, again, if nothing else, name, image, and likeness, that could really help not only revenue sport athletes, that could help non-revenue sport athletes, right? If I'm a bomb-ass swimmer, I was telling this to a group last night. I was like, I would have my own shampoo line, conditioner line, swimsuits, towels, like my whole, I'd have been the Black Mermaid, right? I would have had a whole campaign brand ambassador for something, right? Carol's daughter and I, best friends, like there's so many things that you could use if you're given the opportunity. A lot of these girls have their own YouTube channels, all that kind of stuff, and content building. That's everywhere, right? And so I think there is something to be said about just allowing people to make money, because it's not something we can do on campus. Like we can't take work study jobs, right? It's just not available to us until we get either, you're with medical hardship where you have to retire, or you decide not to swim, or you decide not to do it anymore. And thankfully you might have a coach who let you keep your scholarship. But it's difficult, right? I can't work at Wendy's from 8 to 12 after working, doing homework all day, doing 2 workouts and a lift, and try and be functional. Like that's just it's not feasible. So I think they've really done a disservice in some ways by not allowing kids to financially benefit from all that they do. We're gonna get real deep in this conversation today, honey.
Let's do it.
Because the sports that want the money are predominantly African-American males, I think that's why there's always going to be an issue. And that's unfortunate, right? I think if we step back and look at the NBA, we look at the NFL, and we're talking about pros who have issues with their money, making millions. So I can only imagine being a fly on the wall in those rooms and conversations when it talks about young 18 to 22-year-old African-American males mainly making money for themselves. And so I think it'll always be an issue while they are predominantly bringing the money to sports, because for whatever, I know for a lot of reasons, there's just a certain hierarchy that certain people would like to keep African-American males. And it's unfortunate, right? We understand. So I don't think it'll be in my lifetime, if that makes sense. I very had to take a step back, especially this summer. Everything that went on, and just getting mad at kids for wanting to speak up for themselves, getting mad at kids for wanting to, and when I say kids, we're talking about college guys, right? Getting mad at kids for just wanting to say this isn't right, and I'm upset, or I see myself in this person who got shot and killed by police. Like, I think until that becomes a non-issue, a non-factor, can we get to the basic? We're not even talking about money here. Like can we get to hey, I see you as human, and then I can put a dollar to name, right? Like, I think we're so far from that goal that it's unfortunate. I don't know. I don't think it'll ever get to a point where it's like, oh yeah, it's just a regular commonplace, and your compliance office just deals with it in there every day, and that's now a dot on the bullet point for a job description, where it's like, we'll assist athletes with their name, image, and likeness, and we go about our way. I don't know. I really don't think. I think from a top down, and I'm talking pro down, there has to be a restructure of how we view these young men, and some women for the most part, because women are struggling as well financially from a pro standpoint. But I think it's going to take a lot of restructuring and a lot of change thinking before we get there.
Let's talk about films for a second. Okay. Hidden Figures. Have you ever seen the film?
Of course. Kathy Johnson. Let's go.
What were your thoughts when you watched it, and after you had time to absorb it all of what that movie actually meant?
Yeah, the shirts and people like, oh, I'm not my ancestors. I'm like, ooh, I know I'm not, because I just couldn't. I know I could not go through the experiences that those women went through and still fought through and still were able to succeed despite of all of the aggressive behavior. And I just think, man, it's a different kind of covering and anointing. You're destined to do those certain kind of, accomplishments, because the time period that they were in, not welcoming, not wanting them to be successful. It's amazing how they pioneered and pushed through. And I'm so glad that someone decided to take on that story and tell that story, because I know that there's so many more like that may never get told. But I appreciate, again, even more all of the women who come before me and paved the way, because they put up with things that I just can't imagine.
All right. So you had a quote that said, being the first Black girl to swim at Carolina. Then you took a pause. That's sad, she said. But at the same time, I know I'm not the last, and I know there has been some since you. it's important for everyone to have role models who look like them. Who, like, one day people are probably going to look back, you know, whether it's 5 years, maybe some girls have already come through Carolina who have had that same, hey, that's the first Black female swimmer at UNC who look up to you. You're going to be a role model, or you are a role model. How does that make you feel?
Blessed, right? I'm blessed that I'm in a position that people even want to look up to me. I always say, don't look up to me, be better than me, because there's so many things that I wish I could have done different. And if you really took the time and I could really tell, spill the tea, you would be like, ooh, okay, maybe not that route. but it's humbling, because I know, and it's also a responsibility, right? I think that given this platform, the age I am now, the things that I've been through, I'm a lot wiser and I can lend a lot better advice from definitely a different space in place of peace, right? It's not bitterness. It's not, oh, well, shame on them for not treating me X, Y, Z. It's just a real reflective space of, this is what I went through, but I know you're not going to go through it, because you have someone like me to advocate for you, to amplify your voice, to do whatever I can to ensure that, you know, you don't experience anything that I experienced, as best as I can.